There's a certain kind of moment that feels too precise to ignore. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly they contact you. You hear the same phrase from three completely different people during the same week. You keep noticing the same symbol, the same number, the same pattern, right when your life feels unstable, and for a second, something inside you goes completely still. Not because it feels magical, because it feels targeted, like reality touched a nerve it wasn't supposed to know existed. Most people dismiss these moments immediately. Coincidence, pattern seeking, an overactive brain trying to force meaning onto randomness. But maybe that explanation is a little too convenient. Because here's the uncomfortable part nobody talks about. The strange thing isn't that the coincidence happened. The strange thing is why it hit you emotionally hard enough to remember it years later. And that question leads somewhere darker than most people expect. Carl Jung called these moments synchronicities, not fate, not destiny, not supernatural signs from the universe, meaningful coincidences, moments where your inner psychological state and the external world suddenly seem connected in a way logic alone can't fully explain. But Jung's theory was never comforting. That's the version social media created. The original idea was far more disturbing because Jung believed synchronicity often appears when a person is psychologically divided against themselves. And if you pay attention to your own life, you may notice something unsettling. These moments rarely happen when you feel emotionally stable. They happen during grief, burnout, loneliness, identity collapse, moments where the old version of you is dying psychologically, but the new version hasn't formed yet. And that raises a dangerous question. What if synchronicity isn't appearing to guide you? What if it's appearing to expose you? That changes the entire feeling of it. Because now the coincidence isn't comforting anymore. Now it feels like confrontation. Modern neuroscience actually explains part of this. The brain is constantly filtering reality. Every second, it deletes enormous amounts of information so you don't become overwhelmed. You only consciously notice a tiny fraction of what exists around you, and your nervous system prioritizes whatever feels emotionally important. Someone with anxiety notices threat everywhere. Someone heartbroken suddenly hears lyrics they ignored for years. Someone emotionally lost becomes hyper aware of patterns connected to uncertainty, identity, and meaning. But here's where the explanation stops feeling complete. Selective attention explains why you notice certain things more. It does not explain why some moments feel emotionally surgical, why certain coincidences arrive with timing so precise they bypass logic entirely and land somewhere deeper. And Jung became obsessed with that gap, not because he was irrational, because he noticed something most people avoid noticing about themselves. The unconscious mind communicates through patterns long before it communicates through words. And suddenly, synchronicity becomes less mystical and much more personal because maybe the repeated pattern isn't trying to predict your future. Maybe it's revealing the emotional pattern you keep unconsciously recreating. Think about that carefully. The same relationship dynamic, different person, the same abandonment wound, different face, the same emotional outcome repeating itself across entirely different chapters of your life. At some point, coincidence starts becoming psychologically difficult to separate from repetition. And this is where Jung's theory becomes genuinely uncomfortable. Because the disturbing possibility is not that reality is sending you signs, it's that your unconscious mind may be carrying unresolved emotional patterns into situations before your conscious mind even realizes it. And most people don't want to hear that because it's easier to believe life keeps happening to you, harder to admit part of you may keep rebuilding familiar emotional pain because it feels psychologically recognizable. But why would someone do that? The answer often begins much earlier than adulthood. People who grow up in emotionally unpredictable environments develop nervous systems that become extremely sensitive to hidden patterns, not by choice, by survival. A child who never knows when love, anger, rejection, or emotional withdrawal will appear learns to monitor everything tone shifts, facial expressions, silence, distance, mood changes. Their brain adapts by becoming hyper aware of emotional patterns before danger fully arrives. And years later, that same brain continues scanning reality the exact same way. Not because the person is broken, because their nervous system was trained to survive uncertainty before it ever learned safety. So the next time one of these moments happens, don't ask, was this a sign? Ask something more uncomfortable. Why did this hit something inside me so deeply? Because maybe the most disturbing part of synchronicity isn't that the pattern keeps appearing. Maybe it's that part of you has been unconsciously carrying that pattern into every chapter of your life.